What's up? I'm Professor Ionic, and I'm going to tell you how ionic bonds are formed. So, pretend it's a couple that loves each other, right? Non-metal and metal. Combined, they get married, ionic bond right there. So that's exactly how ionic bonds are formed, between a non-metal and a metal. So, basically, they only combine when the metal transfers an electron to the non-metal, so that they both become stable, right? We represent this by using a Lewis dot diagram, right? We use arrows to represent the transferring of electrons from the metal to the non-metal. And we name this using their names, right? Obviously, they're atoms, right? So we write the first element's name normally without any other thing. And then we write the second element, and then we remove the ending of the element and we add IDE to it. So, and yeah, that's how it's named. But if the first element is a transition metal, we add Roman numerals after the name of the element so that, you know, we can write the charge of the thing, or else you don't do anything else to it.
What's good in the hood, my students? Today I'll be telling you about myself and covalent bonds. So both my parents were nonmetals, and when they merged, they formed a covalent bond, and that covalent bond was me. So unlike my half-brother, Professor Ionic, both my parents are nonmetals, whereas Professor Ionic has a metal parent. And I have another friend who has a non-metal parent, but he also has a metalloid parent, which also makes him a covalent bond parent. So us hood, we basically, instead of transferring our electrons like Professor Ionic, we share our electrons because we hood, we like to share. And in us hood, we like to represent this in our Lewis dot models by connecting the electrons with lines. And so we name ourselves by doing the naming system we call covalent naming system. So basically, if the first element has a subscript 2 or greater, we add a prefix based on that number. And the second element, 1 or any number, we add a prefix for that, and then at the end we add "ide," and that's how we name ourselves.
What's up? It's Professor Ionic, and I'm going to tell you about ionic bonds in the real world. So, an example would be sodium fluoride, right? That's how you say it. The chemical formula for sodium fluoride is NaF. It contains 2 atoms, sodium, Na, and fluorine, F. This is how you represent it on the Lewis dot diagram, right? So you write Na and F. Na contains 1 valence electron. So you write 1 dot. For fluorine, contains 7 valence electrons. So you have 7 dots, right? And then to make it a happy bond, you transfer the valence electron from the sodium to the fluorine. So now, sodium fluoride. And this is a real world example, and that is toothpaste. So, basically, toothpaste. So, another real world example of an ionic bond would be sodium hypochlorite. Contains 3 atoms, and this is how you would represent it in a Lewis dot diagram. Yep, and then this is bleach, right? So, calcium carbonate, another example of an ionic bond in real life. The chemical formula for calcium carbonate is CaCO3, which is carbon. I meant calcium, obviously, come on. Calcium, carbon, oxygen, 3 oxygens. This means there's 5 atoms. And obviously it's calcium carbonate. And it is a limestone. That is what the real world example is. And here's a limestone, folks. So, another real world example of an ionic bond would be sodium bicarbonate. Na sodium, H hydrogen, C carbon, O oxygen, 3 oxygens. And that is 6 atoms. And this is baking soda. So, finally, the last, common real world example of an ionic bond. Iron oxide. So, it has 5 atoms, and the way we write it is Fe2 and O3. the the Lewis dot diagram of iron oxide. There's just all of the stuff going on, and the example is rust. Rust happens when oxygen, changes the stuff on iron. So here's the example. We showed it.
What's good in the hood, my students? It's me, Professor Covalent again. Today I'll be telling you about some real-world examples of covalent bonds. An example of this is CH4, also known as carbon tetrahydride. It consists of 5 atoms, and it's used, you can see it in the real world when cows produce methane. Yes, this is basically just methane and cows produce it. This is the Lewis dot structure for CH4. The carbon is the central atom, and there are hydrogen atoms around it. So another example of covalent bonds in the real world is C6H12 and O6. This is also known as glucose. It consists of 24 atoms, and glucose is actually a type of carbohydrate. So you can find it in food like this. Nitrogen trihydride, another example of covalent bonds in the real world. You hoodlums should know this. It consists of nitrogen and 3 hydrogen atoms. In total, that's 4 atoms. Lewis dot structure is shown like this. As you can see, it's 1 central nitrogen atom with 1 lone pair and 3 hydrogen atoms surrounding it. It's used in cleaning supplies like this floor cleaner. So a really important type of covalent bond in the real world, the one that protects everyone in us hood, is O3, also known as ozone. Ozone is consistent of just O3, which is 3 oxygen atoms. That's 3 atoms in total. This is the Lewis dot model representation. And as you can see, ozone is up in the sky. It protects us from sun rays and UV rays coming down at us. So yeah. So to end off, we have one last covalent bond, C2H4, also known as dicarbon tetrahydride, which is polyethylene plastic. It has a total of 6 atoms. This is how the Lewis dot structure is represented. And as said in the name, it's in plastic, like this plastic jug thing. So that was our presentation on the differences between ionic and covalent bonds and some examples in the real world. So I hope you enjoyed us 2 professors sharing. We're like one of the best, 2 of the best professors in the world. So please just follow us forever, and thank you so much.
What's up? I'm Professor Ionic, and I'm going to tell you about ionic bonds. Let's restart. Do one.
What's good in the hood, my hood? I'm like Professor Ionic. Oh shoot, I forgot that. What's good in the hood, my students?
Why are you? Why are you?
Covering up your metal, right? They have a kid, Ionic.
Like my half brothers, Professor Ionic and Professor whatever that other dude is. Wait. Today I'll be
6 atoms.
So again, another thing that you can. So my hood fellows, another example of a real world example of.
How do we say it?
Oh my god.